Hello everyone, welcome to the Michael Trimm Show. This is episode 24. And so, first what I'd like you to do is subscribe to the channel, like this video, follow me on Twitter, and make sure to download it. Go to savefrom.net, SAVEFROM.net. Paste in the URL of the video and download it to your computer. It will be posted also on michaeltrimmshow.com, and the reason why I have a feeling that it's going to get pulled is because of the topic. It's going to be relating to Pizzagate. It's going to be relating to some of the scandals that have been happening and some of the silencing efforts and techniques that have been used to go after people who have been attempting to report on this type of stuff. And so, ultimately what I want to do is begin by just talking about some of the recent stuff that has happened in relation to the joint address that President Trump gave to the U.S., some of the left's reaction, some of the right's reaction, the fiasco with Jeff Sessions. A lot of these things are quite troubling, in my opinion. But it's important to understand that Pizzagate, and I firmly believe this, is a trap. It's definitely true, but it's a trap. And what essentially is happening is, when you look at Pizzagate / Pedogate / whatever you want to call it, people need to start using the correct terminology for it, because the term Pizzagate is discrediting a lot of the investigative journalism that's going on. And the reason why it's discrediting it is because it's focusing around something that I would consider plausible deniability. So, pedogate is real. It's just simply another word for human trafficking. When you look at the definition of human trafficking, you can see that there are two types. There's labor, and there is sexual abuse. Ultimately, human trafficking is one of the most challenging things for a society and a collective group of people to come to terms with. And I think what we're going to see here in the next couple of days, in the next couple of weeks, and the time frame is incredibly difficult to work with right now because there are so many moving components and variables to this that it just seems easy to get caught into the trap, especially with David Seaman saying, high-level arrests are coming next week, we have a high-level arrest this week, etc. His heart was in the right place, definitely. But he got caught down a rabbit hole. And what happened is, when you catch yourself down a rabbit hole, you tend to lose sight of logic and Occam's razor. One of the things that it's very important to understand about the Podesta emails is, yes, there were some emails that had troubling language to them. Language that is commonly associated with pedophilia. Then all of this stuff came out about Comet Ping Pong and some of the individuals who may be associated with that enterprise, and saying that they're running a trafficking ring in the basement of the pizza place. And, that would be very wild and crazy if they did. So you can have very suspicious emails. You can have very suspicious language that's being used. Just because you use suspicious language or you write suspicious emails doesn't mean definitively that you are a pedophile. It just means that it's strange that you're using code words that are also used by pedophiles. So when people make an association or they make an assumption about somebody, it's important not to go out and directly say, person A, you are a pedophile, without the concrete proof to this. So the guy that does AMTV, I don't know his name actually, but I've watched him a few times, but he basically had a statement on that Pizzagate is a trap, it's a Trojan horse, that says ultimately that when you try to go after Comet Ping Pong, you're going to get caught down a plausibly deniable rabbit hole. And that isn't where to focus. InfoWars has come out and even said, don't focus on Comet Ping Pong. It's a distraction. The reason why is because I genuinely think it is a form of plausible deniability that's being employed by these people. They need to have plausible deniability. You know, if they come under scrutiny and people think that, you know, they're having, you know, minors and they're raping them and they're doing satanic rituals and they're chopping them up and eating them, if that's what you think that they're doing, and you think that they're doing it in the basement of a pizza shop, then I would recommend that you think long and hard about the logistics of that, about how reasonable of an argument that could possibly be, and also think about how somebody would be able to pull it off. And the form is, the general notion here is that, you know, these people use language that pedophiles use. They have creepy Instagram photos, yes. They refer to handkerchiefs that have pizza-related maps on them, yes. They talk about getting in a warm hot tub with hot water with young kids in it, so there will be extra entertainment, yes. Those types of things are concerning, but they are not an indictment saying that this person is a pedophile. It's simply saying, and it's critical, that people have this caution when dealing with this network. This network is dangerous. One of the things that's important to understand is, and other people have reported on this, I'm not going to duplicate the reporting, I'm going to give a shout out to Tim Black from last night. You know, your show was very entertaining. The comment actually that I posted on your super chat was, my wife thinks that your show is hilarious and she loves watching it, so good job. Other people have been the End Times News, I think his name is Joe Stephanopoulos, I think. Anyway, he basically came under scrutiny for a $5 million lawsuit from the guy that runs Media Matters, who is David Brock, and his associates. And then Michael Trevonich, whatever his last name is, was sued by Jeffrey Epstein with a completely redacted document, 9 pages, and literally the only thing you can say are the lawyers listed at the end of the document. It's pretty obtuse. But the point is that the people have a genuine concern about what's going on here, and there seems to be this association with trying to identify who people could possibly be involved in this pedophilia ring and how deep the problem goes. And, you know, one of the things that's important to understand is that I think, and this is my thoughts are that no matter which country, no matter which society, no matter which anything that you have, you're never going to be able to fully get rid of the problem, because adults have hormones, and sometimes the hormones go wild. And the only way that you can prevent it, purely prevent it, is through education. Education of young people, education of older people, understanding the implications and what it does to a person. Take law out from the equation for a moment, because human trafficking is something that exists in humanity, and it has existed in humanity across many generations, across many governments, across many countries, on every continent, everywhere. It exists everywhere. And so when you want to address the problem of exploitation, forcing people into sexual labor or slavery or anything of that nature, when you start talking about it, you have to think about it from the perspective of human rights and civil rights, and not necessarily from the perspective of the law says X, so therefore you must only do Y. It needs to be instead of, when you think about exploiting children for trafficking, you have to think about the human rights issue with that. And people need to be aware of the human rights issue. You know, we, as a society and as a culture, have learned that slavery is bad. I mean, you don't have to go through to know that. It's unfair to be forced to do something that you don't want to do. People have basic rights and basic liberties to be who they want to be at the fullest of their potential and their expectations. And so, anyway, I'm rambling, but long story short is Pizzagate, when you talk about Comet Ping Pong, is a distraction. Okay? I believe that they're using plausible deniability in order to distract from the actual pedophilia ring that exists within Washington. Pedophilia rings exist everywhere. Okay? They are everywhere. They're in every country, they're in every continent, they're in every society, they're in every culture. Okay? And so when we talk about Pedogate, or when we talk about Pizzagate, politically, we're talking about the one that's located in Washington, D.C. However, a lot of people, and you know, I find this odd that it's a lot of very religiously motivated individuals too, of which I am not, but a lot of religiously motivated people have this opinion that, you know, it is somehow a religious sanction to essentially fight and protect these innocent victims. I don't think that a religion is required in order to do that. Just understanding, treat others the way that you want to be treated, is reason enough, and enough logic, and enough understanding to know that trafficking humans is wrong. I mean, it doesn't take a fucking brainiac to figure this out, people. It really doesn't. And the important thing to point out here is that the epidemic of human trafficking is coupled with gangs, it's coupled with drug dealing, they go hand in hand. And so Donald Trump talked about, he's been talking about, you know, immigration. He's been talking about getting rid of illegal, undocumented people, where they're gang members and they're this and they're that. And he talks about, you know, cracking down on human trafficking. And he talks about cracking down on the pedophilia network, mentioning that Bill Clinton has some very disturbing things with Lolita Island that will be coming out. You know, he said that at CPAC. The fact that we have Jeff Sessions, who is being persecuted right now by the left and the right, in my opinion, the people who are behind this pedogate, or at least covering it up rather, he's under fire from them. Because if you have an attorney general who's going to prosecute pedophilia in Washington, they're going to try everything they can to get rid of him. And, you know, let's talk a second about immigration, because it's a very delicate subject for a lot of people. It's not delicate for a lot of people who are self-righteous, people who have never immigrated, who have never been immigrants before. It's easy to say, fuck the immigrants. It's easy to say, lock the borders up, don't allow people in, etc. It's easy to say that. But what is hard is understanding that there will be a lot of resistance to it. And what I want to do is explain to you from the perspective of being an immigrant, what it means to, ultimately what it means to be in favor of the immigration deportation system. So I was naturalized at 7 years old, and a U.S. citizen, and you know, what I find is fascinating about this is I could not stand the fact that when the immigration ban was announced, there were protests, violent protests with thousands of people, almost instantaneous at airports. Airports. Airports are like, in terms of the in terms of like the closest thing to martial law, that is an airport. Okay? Where if you sneeze the wrong way, you could get shot by an officer. If you're going through TSA and you, holy shit, you have a bottle of water that has more than 8 ounces, you're going to try to blow up this plane, we're going to put you on a terror watch list, we're going to prevent you from getting to your destination. Oh, you're going home for Christmas? Well, fuck you, you're not going to go. You have a bottle of water that has 8 ounces of water in it. You're only allowed to have 3 ounces. That's the airport that we have come to learn and accept. You know, people voluntarily go to the airports and get radiation poisoning. The fact that the millimeter wave scanners are still even being used to this day is baffling to me. You have, you know, no rights, no privacy rights at all in an airport. There are absolutely no privacy rights in an airport. And, you know, people can make the argument to say that it's for good reason. But you do have protections under the Constitution. You can't just, law enforcement just can't break into your home and start searching your belongings because they want to. No, they have to have a warrant. They have to have a reasonable cause. And it seems that even at airports that doesn't happen. Yet, the part that bothered me about it, that so much doesn't bother me, okay? Because it's benign, it's people are temporarily moving around, etc. I understand the reason for it, I support it. What I don't support, though, is the fact that there were all these protesters and all these paid protesters to be demonstrating at airports about the immigration ban. I talked about this being a Muslim ban, I talked about other things of that nature. Closing up the borders, deporting people who are undocumented, they go hand in hand, okay? The first thing you have to realize is that out of the 49 Muslim countries, 7 of them were selected. And they weren't even the most dense population of Muslims in the world, okay? Obviously, there were some glaring holes that excluded Saudi Arabia, for instance. It excluded Turkey, for instance. In my opinion, they should have included them. They should have. But the whole immigration thing between the Islamic countries that have immigration bans imposed on them is a constitutional decision that the president can make. And then you look at the domestic deportation of people who came into the country undocumented, who came into the country illegally, and you have this righteousness that people have to it that says that because I have been here for X number of years, therefore it is my right to be a citizen of this country. And there are arguments that favor both the opposition and there are things that favor the opposition and there are things that favor the defense. Okay? The opposition to immigration laws are, of course, that if you are a contributing member of society, if you have been paying taxes, if you've gone through the school system, you contribute back to your community, etc., then getting status as a citizen should not be difficult. But when you look at some of the rhetoric that Trump uses about his whole immigrants, you know, pegging them as being rapists and drug dealers, he's not lying. But he's not lying about everybody. He's only lying about the majority. There are a lot of really dangerous gangs in the United States. A lot of really dangerous gangs. All over the place. Extremely dangerous. That make going to Tehran a walk in the park. That's how dangerous some of these cities are. You look at how you could have Chicago, Los Angeles, parts of New York, Baltimore, Miami, Boston, all over the place. You have gangs all over the place. Las Vegas. Really, really evil stuff that these criminals do. And you have to understand that human trafficking is an epidemic. It isn't just about the Podesta emails or one or two politicians that are around. It's an epidemic. It happens all over the place. You can't... The thing is, one of the reasons why I think there hasn't been high-level arrests yet is because there are so many smaller players that are involved. Gang members, people that do the trafficking, people that provide, the drugs, cocaine and heroin and other addictive substances, of which marijuana is not part of that list. But the point here is that this network is massive. It's massive, and there are so many independent areas to it that it's like whack-a-mole. You try to take out one, and then three more pop up. You try to take out one, and then three more pop up. Okay? But what happens is, in the beginning, and I think this is what Trump is trying to do, you have to collect enough moles, whack-a-moles, to paint a picture. And the picture being who the ringleaders are. Who are the kingpins behind the operations? And it isn't lawful or investigation worthy to say that people who use strange words are therefore pedophiles. No. You have to commit the acts in order to be a pedophile. You have to have evidence of those acts being committed. When you have the evidence, then you can bring forth a trial. And then they can be judged among a jury of their peers through due process, and they can receive judgment. And the thing that's important to understand about this is, when I talk about the extensive network that exists, it's extensive. It's in school systems, in your town, in my town, the town over. It's in your law enforcement. There are good cops and there are bad cops. You ever heard of the term dirty cop? Oh, this person's a dirty cop. It's because they break the law for their own personal agenda. Sometimes it's for vengeance, sometimes it's for self-gain, sometimes it's to feel like that they're worth something, that they have some type of contribution to make. The problem goes deep. And what I want to talk to you today about is, I have a source that came forward that decided to talk on the record if necessary, but off the record for the most part. And it's about the Department of Health and Human Services, DHHS. So what I wanted to talk to you about is looking at the trafficking industry in general. The places where pedophiles and human traffickers typically look for victims are through adoption services and foster services. And they use orphanages, they use kids that have been rejected by families, they use people that have already been victimized in other manners, and they exploit them. They give them drugs, they give them this, they give them a home to sleep in, etc. In exchange, go have sex with these old men. Okay, to the 12-year-old. There's a provision in DHHS that's valid and active right now that permits caseworkers, teachers, cops, a whole variety of type of people to use sexual abuse against a child as a form of mental treatment. That's real right now. So when we talk about wanting to stop Pizzagate, when we want to talk about stopping pedogate, when we want to talk about stopping human trafficking in general, that's the place to look, not at Comet Ping Pong. The fact that there are provisions that I have first-hand witnessed and first-hand experienced, there are provisions that say that people of authority over somebody who they believe need a certain course of action. They're called behavior modification techniques. They include sexual abuse. They don't include rape, but they do include sexual abuse. And sexual abuse can be in the form of groping, it can be in the form of excessive touching, it can be in the form of, touching in terms of like anywhere, like genitalia, non-genitalia, etc. Talking sexually to a child, etc. Those are some of the provisions that exist in the Department of Health and Human Services. And so, one of the things that's very, very, very important to understand about this cabal that exists, this network that exists, that there are people, I believe that it's inherent to humans in general to be, everybody is susceptible. And I'm going to make a science fiction reference here. I'm going to use a Star Wars reference, not to help Disney in any way, because I think Disney's an evil company, but basically, in Star Wars, the notion is that everybody has good and bad inside of them. It was a theme that was used in Harry Potter. Everybody has good and dark sides to them. I believe it was in book number 5, when Sirius Black was talking with Harry. Harry said, I always just feel so angry all the time. What if I'm becoming bad, just like Voldemort is? And he says, there's both good and bad parts in every human, and the difference to it is, and what makes you a good person is which one you choose to act on. And so, the part here that I want to kind of conclude on is every single person has the good parts of humanity and the bad parts of humanity in them. Very, very much so. They're very powerful subconscious forces that operate in the mind, that operate in the body, that you could call types of consciousness. And depending on what you choose to act on, if you choose the path to rape children, if you choose the path to sexually exploit them, if you choose the path to be involved in satanic rituals, if you choose the path of whatever thing that we classify as being a bad behavior, as being an evil behavior, something that exploits innocence and destroys a future. When you look at that, solving human trafficking becomes a nearly impossible task from the perspective of just arresting a few people at the high level. From the perspective of from a whole bunch of other scenarios. It becomes a dauntingly challenging task. And the only way that you can really make positive change on it is to understand that you effectively have this notion that, I'm going to quote Judith Staff at this point, quote, "Some people think that educating children about sexual abuse ruins their innocence. Wrong. Child abuse alone does that. It's only through communication, it's only through understanding, it's only through language that we're able to understand that there is the more that people try to shield children from, hey, there are pedophiles out there, hey, there are people that want to exploit you, hey, there is slavery to this day. It's one of the forms of human trafficking. If you tell them that the world that you live in is not rainbows and fairy tales and My Little Pony and all that other bullshit, then they can't be as victimized. And there is a very real component to this that is challenging, and that's, how much information would somebody possibly have to reveal, how much would they not have to reveal, etc. And it's a challenging thing. But going back to the DHHS, I think taking a hard look at the Department of Human Health and Services and Child Protective Services. Taking a hard, long look into those two organizations, I think, will be important to weeding out pedophiles, both in those organizations and outside of those organizations who are being protected by them. I encourage people who have connections or associations to those two departments, if they want to reach out anonymously to me, they can. Go to keybase.io/realmiketrimm. The link is down in the description if you want to securely communicate with me using PGP encryption. That little service provides a way for you to encrypt your messages with my public key using your browser offline, where you can encrypt it, and then you can email it to me, you can send it as a Twitter message, etc. The only way that message could get decrypted is with my private key and the extremely complex password associated with it. So, this piece of information was incredibly important that I received. This tidbit of information. It's the Behavior Modification Techniques clause in social work from DHHS that permits sexual abuse towards children as a form of treatment. And they can use any type of retaliation comments that a child may make about a social worker who has that status. They call it lying, they call it fake, they call it whatever you want to use to justify it, to ignore the problem. Okay? That organization is using language that permits sexual abuse of children as a form of treatment. And it protects the people who are performing the sexual abuse. So we have to do ourselves diligence. We have to do ourselves a huge, huge service. We have to stop referring to Pizzagate as a Comet ping pong thing, because it's not. It's actually a human trafficking thing. It's a very real problem that exists, and there's not much that any single person is going to be able to do. The first thing that I want you to understand about this is, at this point in time, perhaps in October it was okay, but at this point in time, when we are so close to taking down the Washington pedophilia ring, whoever may be involved, I'm not going to name names, whoever may be involved, when we start going after that ring, things will change. When we start changing policies at DHHS that allow sexual abuse towards children to take place as part of approved and allowed treatment methods, change will happen. When we start educating people about the signs of child abuse, about being able to come out and talk about some of the instances of child abuse, people that you might know who are pedophiles, who got convicted for being sexual offenders of any nature. It's important to understand that the only way that we're going to possibly defeat this entire cabal is through information, and not falling trap to misinformation, deliberate misinformation campaigns. They're not going to help the cause. They're not going to help you. They're not going to help me. They're not going to help the victims who are being completely exploited. But the long story short here is that there is a direct correlation between the immigration ban from the 7 countries to deporting undocumented immigrants in the United States, to not yet going after high-profile people, to the fiasco that they're trying to get rid of Jeff Sessions on the whole Russia thing. Those are all connected, okay? The Yemen raid, connected. These things are connected. And the best way to describe it is that this is essentially 12D chess, 5D chess, whatever it might be. that Donald Trump is playing right now. He's playing chess with multiple dimensions, and he has multiple different things happening simultaneously. We're hearing about the wiretapping of Trump Tower, a violation of the federal government spying on a private citizen. Never before have we had a president that talked about mass surveillance from the perspective of being a victim of mass surveillance. I wonder what that will happen. Long story short is Pizzagate is only happening right now. The only reason why it's being exposed right now, the only reason why all of that stuff, the only reason why is because of Anthony Weiner's laptop. If Anthony Weiner hadn't gotten caught, we would have never known. The only reason why we were able to make an association between Anthony Weiner, who is a pedophile, the only reason why we're able to make that association to the Clinton campaign, to the Podesta emails, with these weird words and stuff, is because of Huma Abedin. She's the catalyst in this. She bridges the power that is of Hillary Clinton and her campaign and the blatant, exposed pedophilia of Anthony Weiner. Those two components, Huma Abedin is the catalyst between those. And so if on this laptop he had troves of blackmail against politicians, various forums, etc., if he had gotten all of that, then prosecutors have enough evidence right now to go after the high-level people. But just because you get rid of the high-level people doesn't mean that the gangs who are collecting the children in the first place, who are selling the cocaine and the heroin to these kids to sexually exploit them, it doesn't mean that those people go away. So before you take out the top, you have to take out the bottom first. Let it fall down on itself. Don't give them a network for them to have power. That's what it comes down to. And so, some people have been commenting on my videos being too long. I'm going to wrap this up. We're at 37.5 minutes so far. I'm going to wrap it up, but remember, going after Pizzagate, Pedogate, etc., you have to understand that Comet Ping Pong is plausible deniability. It is a distraction right now. Yes, they may have art that depicts pedophilia. Yes, they may have symbols and imagery that may depict pedophilia, but that's not where it's happening. And to make an assumption and to think that it's happening there is falling privy to misinformation. The real information, the real meat and potatoes of the story, coming from a vegetarian, the real meat and potatoes of it are the notion that Anthony Weiner is essentially the missing link to this entire story. He is the missing link. When we focus on him and his problems and what he's done and the people that he knows and the people that he's communicated with, etc., and we couple that with the Podesta emails, we see that there's this wide network of people that are involved. Okay? Just that they're involved doesn't mean that they're all pedophiles. It just means that they're involved. And what we have to do as investigative journalists is follow the breadcrumbs, document the breadcrumbs, and ask questions. Don't come up with saying an assertion. Don't come out and say, this person is a pedophile, because you will get sued. They will go after you. Instead, what you have to do is you have to present the breadcrumbs that you see before you, the evidence that you see before you, and you postulate questions. You ask questions that sometimes are suggestive, that sometimes you structure the question so that you expect an answer. But you ask a question, and there's nothing illegal about asking a question. It doesn't matter if it's, are you a pedophile? That's not illegal. But to say, you are a pedophile, could be considered libel. And so that's where your free speech, your free rights of speech end. And so postulating things in the form of a question are very, very important when it comes to dealing with individuals who may be involved in Pizzagate, or may be involved in Pizzagate. But take away from this that there is an epidemic going on right now in DHHS that needs to be exposed. It needs to be opened up to the public. People need to come forward. If people work there, they want to redact information that's sensitive or private, go for it. Leak some documents, leak some information. We need to know about the provisions that have been used. We need to know about the people that have been protected. We need to know, and even if you can't give the name of the person, you can give clues about the people involved. If you don't want to involve people exactly in terms of the reporting aspect, if you want to keep that between law enforcement and yourself, go through the FBI. Don't go through other channels. Go through the FBI directly. It's a different game right now. The Department of Justice is getting cleaned out. The FBI, the agents that were working on the Clinton email servers, they all know what's going on, and they want to prosecute the hell out of this thing. And they're getting antsy, and they're getting worried that nothing is going to happen. And what we need to do is make sure that people who are on the ground, as people who are genuinely good people, who are providing services to individuals, who are providing help and support to people and victims, when they know about provisions or laws or rules or exceptions that have been allowed, come out and speak about it, anonymously if you want. Come out and speak about it. I'll even report on it for you, just like I did with this instance. Come out and speak about it, because it's important to understand that defeating pedophilia in the country doesn't end by just arresting a couple of politicians. You have to go after everything, and it is going to be a very long and difficult battle, but I think we will prevail. And you know, those are the things. The reason why I think that this video is going to get pulled is because I'm talking about a provision in DHHS that they may be embarrassed to have anybody find out, and they may want to pull this video down because I talk about a policy that they have that allows the exploitation of children sexually as a form to modify the child's behavior. A pedophile can come up with a number of different reasons to prescribe a child with mental instability, and that their form of treatment is the only way to correct it. That is real. It does happen. Make sure to subscribe. Comment below. Follow me on Twitter. I just crossed the 3,000 mark. I just crossed 2 million views. My channel hasn't been that censored. You know, I've been a little bit conservative in the terms of the keywords that I use, the title of the videos, etc. I try to keep the content unique to the video content itself and not to the title. And so some of the things that I'm going to have to use, I apologize, but the last video that I had to do, I had to make the title clickbait. Primarily because if I don't make the title clickbait, and I make it actually what the topic of the video is about, then it gets pulled and demonetized. If I make the topic generic, and I don't use clickbait, clickbait memology, I think it's called, mimetic theory, okay? If I don't use it, then I won't get any views. Nobody will be finding it. It'll get ignored by the search terms, etc. So understand that if I make the title provocative, like, oh my gosh, what did Bernie Sanders actually do about election fraud? If I make it something like that, it's going to be harder for them to censor it. It's going to be harder for people not to be able to stumble upon it. And the thing is, very vital and important information will become public. And that's the most important thing. Because the more information that people know about the problems of human trafficking, about the provisions that exist in CPS and DHHS, provisions that exist at different classified programs, etc., ways that they are able to cover this stuff up, ways that they are able to drop cases. The person that I spoke with, the source that I have, stated that they knew of at least 6 instances where people were being sexually exploited. They were being sexually exploited, and the caseworkers around who were aware of it couldn't do anything about it because it was permitted. And if they tried to bring a case against them, then the entire weight of DHHS and others would go down on them, and they would lose their ability to practice and to be caregivers. It's like playing with fire for these people when it comes to speaking out against the pedophilia networks, speaking out against child abuse. It seems to be that when you want to actually impose real change that says, hey, get rid of the provision that allows caseworkers with behavior-modifying techniques approved to use sexual abuse against a child. We need to get rid of things like that. We need to protect people who work in those scenarios where they try to speak out about it and they get fired, they get retaliated against. You know, there may be individual case examples which are HIPAA protected, but it's important to understand that there is an epidemic in general. And addressing it from the perspective of deporting gang members, and I honestly say you can't be too soft with these people. Look at M13. Look into who they are. Look into what they do. Look into what they've done. Look into it. When you actually understand what these people do, and how these people operate, and what gets them hard, it's super, super disturbing. And I support the deportation efforts, despite the fact that the left, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, John McCain, and I said left, yes, I did say that correctly, Lindsey Graham, Paul Ryan, etc., all of the establishment deep state people who, Chuck Schumer just got caught, a pedophile from India trying to get a visa, pulled some strings for him to get a visa. Come on. How is that not opening an investigation into it? How is that act alone not opening an investigation into, are you aiding and abiding in a criminal enterprise? Are you involved in racketeering, even if you're not a pedophile? Chuck Schumer, are you a pedophile? That's my first question. And Chuck Schumer, are you involved in a criminal racketeering enterprise that supports and funds pedophilia and human trafficking? I think those are reasonable questions to ask, given that recent transgression that just came out. And the thing is, there's going to be a lot of new stuff coming out, and I'm going to be making some more videos. If the channel gets pulled, I'm going to come up on I'll digitally sign a message on Gab, gab.ai, gab.ai/realmiketrimm. On that Twitter feed, Twitter alternative feed, I will basically post information about if the channel gets blocked, if it gets shut down, what the new channel is. I have a SoundCloud podcasting episode out, so episode 24 will be added to that as well. Make sure to subscribe if you prefer the audio forums. But in general, I really enjoy doing this type of stuff, and I really don't make any money on it. About $100 a month on advertising. That's about it. I do it because I deeply care about this subject, and I care about approaching it with the right tools, with the right knowledge, with the right logic. And you can't get distracted by a lot of the noise that's around. It's very easy to get distracted by that. But on that note, I'm going to finish up. I want to thank you for watching this. Make sure to subscribe. Click on the bell for notifications about when new videos get uploaded. Join michaeltrimmshow.com/join. Become a member of the censorship-free community. Talk about Pizzagate all you want. Post vote.co articles if you want, etc. Join the discussions. Join the community. etc. If you feel the inclination to donate to the channel, you can go to michaeltrimmshow.com. There's a button that says donate. You can use Bitcoin or you can use PayPal. Both of those would be greatly appreciated, though they are not required. I'm going to continue to do what I do because I care about it. I'm not driven by any other factors. I have a job. I have a nice job, actually. It's a tremendous job. I'll leave you at that. Have a great day, everyone.